Hello there, welcome back to Leaps and Hounds, our dog training podcast. We are here at the Dogs Trust in Harefield with another episode. I'm here with Kris Glover, dog behaviourist here at the Dogs Trust, and Tink, who's looking very excited about something at the moment. I think she knows what you've got in your hand.
I think she does.
Doesn't she, Kris? She's poised because there's something we're going to be talking about in just a moment. But we've been answering your questions this series. You've been getting in touch with all your dog behaviour issues, your problems, which we've been addressing. And we've got one here from Emmeline. She has got in touch about her dog Rita. She's a German wire-haired pointer. Now, she doesn't like going in the car. Rita runs off when you're ready to go and will hide under the table to avoid any car travel. And obviously, I mean, you know, there are things that you can do. Maybe you don't need to go out in the car so often, but there are going to be times when you need your dog to go in the car, aren't there? So what can Emmeline do you think?
So first of all, we need to just find out how old Rita is. And is this a sudden thing? So has she usually been okay in the car and all of a sudden she stopped wanting to get in? Or is it something lifelong she's never been comfortable with? We just need to be checking with the vet that there's nothing physical that might make actually getting in the car more difficult for her. So is it actually getting in the car that she dislikes? Is she a little bit painful? Has she had an unpleasant experience when she's jumped into the car? Is it enclosed spaces that she's worried by? But definitely just getting checked by the vet would be good just to start off with. And then what we want to do is just try and understand what her reluctance to get into the car is. So again, if she's always easily got into the car, but now she's struggling a little bit more, can we just give her a ramp or steps and teach her how to climb those ramps and steps inside the house and then put it up to the car so that it's an easier way of getting in and an easier way of getting out? Is it the fact that actually she doesn't like getting into the car because actually she's too far away from her owner?
Right.
So therefore actually being in the car is quite a stressful experience for her because she's actually sort of separated. So could we then get her comfortably sat on the back seat, harnessed in, seat belted in, or using something sort of similar to this? I know for a pointer it's not going to be a crate this size, it's going to be a much bigger crate, but sometimes just having that, being able to have something around you and feeling a little bit safer, she might feel a little bit more comfortable with that.
Yeah, so just to explain, if you're listening to us on the podcast rather than watching us, then what we've got here with us is, we're calling it a crate, but it's like it's a bag, isn't it,
Yeah.
with a rigid frame.
Yeah.
And it's got a zip at the front, it's got a zip at the top, it's got ventilation holes, and these crates are travel bags. They're really useful and a good safe space as well for a dog to have. We'll kind of come on to talk about those a bit more because they're really useful in lots of different situations, aren't they?
Yeah.
But talking about reasons why your dog might not like the car, they have also got really long memories, haven't they, about places you might have taken them to in the car, like the vets, for example. And then they suddenly think, oh no, we're in the car again, that means I'm going to the vets. What can you do in that scenario?
So again, it's has the dog has some really good positive experiences with getting in the car and then suddenly decides that they don't want to go into. We've got to find out why that's the case. If it is the fact that actually they've never been comfortable with car travel, it could just be being in closed space that they find a little bit distressing, or is it the fact that actually the journey? So some dogs, like us, do suffer from travel sickness. So actually being in the car can make them feel nauseous and it's not a very nice experience for them. So is that the fact that there's reluctance to get in the car? Dogs, if some dogs will lay down but look very stiff and salivate and just look as though they are feeling a little bit sick. Other dogs would just keep pacing around. Again, that's not a very relaxing time either for them or for us because we're being distracted by a dog moving around in the boot or they can't do that in the back of the car because they'd be harnessed in. So what we need to do is just make sure it's a really positive experience with going into the car. So the car equals going to their favourite walk. The car it's a short journey time. If we're introducing a dog that's just had no experience of it, if we're now trying to sort of unpick and help a dog that has had a sort of unpleasant experience of being in the car, it's about just, even if you've got the car parked in the driveway, usually those dogs that are really sort of adverse to getting into the car, what they will do is they will just dash past the car and avoid. Or if you get out a particular harness that would indicate to them that that's going to be the harness that they wear in the car, they try to avoid the harness, which sounds like what this little dog's doing or big dog's doing. So it's just about trying to sort of associate that harness or the lead with really good stuff. As soon as they spot the car, they get a little bit of food, and then as soon and over lots and lots and lots of days and weeks, just trying to encourage our dogs a little bit closer. So when they're a bit braver to take a step forward, we then throw the treat there, or we might throw the treat behind, so they've always got the option to retreat, and just slowly start and develop that sort of forward motion towards the car. If they are very reluctant to get into the boot, then maybe we set up some nice space on the back seat.
Okay, so it's about sort of varying it. So actually your dog, you don't want your dog to automatically assume it knows where it's going. So sometimes, you know, when you're starting off, say, okay, a stationary car, let's get in, let's make it a positive experience. We'll go around the block and then we'll come back. And the dog's like, oh, that's okay, it was only around the block. And you can kind of build it from there. So the dog doesn't quite know what to expect from the journey, which means it hopefully will be a bit happier. If it does get travel sick, I mean, that's no fun for anybody, is it? Can you give them some medication for it?
You can. So again, speak to your vet, because there is medication that you can give. I don't think it can be given too frequently, and I think sometimes the cost of it, especially for bigger dogs, can be quite expensive. But definitely speak to your vet.
Worth looking into.
Just to see whether that's helpful. So especially if you've got a journey that you have to make, that might be helpful, just to allow them to settle a little bit better and feel less sick.
Yeah, okay. And let's look at then where you put them in the car. You've touched on this already, but you know, depending on what car you've got, you might be able to put them in the boot. You might be able to put them on the back seat with some sort of harness, or in the crate, the travel bag that we've got here, or I don't know, footwell. What are the sort of do's and don'ts about where you should put them and what considerations to have?
So the boot is probably preferable, but it has to have a dog guard up, because we don't want them getting into the back seat to the front seat to then distract us from driving. So we have a legal obligation to make sure our dogs are secure when they're travelling in the car. So the boot space is probably the best. Bigger space, we can put big duvets in there to give them a bit of support. And we can also, if we do decide to do a little bit of crate training with them and use a crate in the boot, if we have got a dog that is quite liable to bark at people and dogs as you're driving along, it's quite easy to cover a crate. It's a lot easier to cover a crate than it is cover windows. And we still can give them the ability to be able to see us, because we can pull the central or the in-between seat on the back seat down so they can see us, the armrest. But it means that they can't see what's going on around them, and that might help them settle. If they're on the back seat, they must be harnessed in, or if they're in a crate, they need to have a seatbelt around the crate to prevent that from moving forward. Should never, ever, ever have them travelling in front with us.
Good to know. And I mean, one thing I had with my dog Bailey was she was great in the car. She loved the car, but she was too excited about where we were going. So what about sort of dog etiquette in the car? Because she was the equivalent of a child saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And she would get so excited when she thought we were coming to the end of the car journey. It would drive me nuts. And I tried all sorts of, you know, pulling over, we're going to wait for a bit. You don't know where we're going. Are we finishing? No, we're not there yet. But still, she thought she knew when she was getting to the end. And is there anything you can do about noisy dogs in the car to just get them to be a bit quieter?
So I think you try some really good stuff there. And as you say, it's really difficult, because there is not probably more than 2 or 3 ways to actually get to that park. So they just learn. They learn that there's 2 or 3 ways that we'll be driving to get to the park. We might be driving in slightly different clothes because we're dog walking, so we put our dog walking clothes on. What we need to do again is consider that, why is that park so fun? Why is that end of the walk so fun for them? Can we actually walk them there? But then if we've got a dog that pulls on the lead, I would have made that recommendation earlier about actually we need to be able to drive them there. But if we can walk them there, maybe that would just reduce some of that excitement. We can start taking them on what we call boring journeys. So we do just drive them around with us, so that they just think,
not
actually,
always fun.
No,
you know,
absolutely.
yeah.
So being in the car is no longer fun. Unfortunately, the fun walk will absolutely trump that. So when we then, if we do that 6 or 7 times, but on the 8th time we take him to the park, that's going to probably undo all that 6 or 7 times we've done. If we've got a dog that will focus on food or a enrichment, so again, a food toy activity while they're in the boot, or have a chew, something that would just keep them occupied for that short drive to wherever we're going, we could try that. The dogs that usually are frustrated or overly excited rather than fearful tend to be the dogs that bark on the way there and they're lovely and quiet on the way back.
Sleep on the way back.
Because they don't need to be frustrated because they've got there.
For the longer journeys, you know, like you do with children, you're going to want to stop off, have a wee break and, you know, a little run around and give them a bit of a break from the intensity of the car, because it can be a long time for them to be just curled up somewhere, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I think just giving them an opportunity for a stretch, water, because you can get water bowls that don't spill that you can put in the back of the car. But again, if you're going on a very long journey and the car is likely to heat up, even when we're driving it, just having access to water would be quite good. But just giving them opportunity for the toilet as well.
So let's talk about what we have here with us, which is the dog crate. Now, as I say, this one is sort of more of a bag with a rigid frame. You've got one like this. At home, people might have kind of just sort of the metal crates or other different types of ones, but these ones are really useful because you can put the dog's bed in there. It's a safe space and you can sort of use it for training, but also kind of as a place where the dog knows it can retreat to.
Definitely. So I think the good thing about these is they're very light. You don't get bruises when you bump into them as you would do with the metal crates. I think they're just slightly easier. They're more malleable, so you can sort of push them into a car a little bit more easily. The only thing that then they don't protect from is if you want a dog. If we had a dog that really wanted to get out, but they shouldn't be in there in the first place, they could quite easily eat their way out of these crates. So, but we shouldn't be zipping dogs in that aren't comfortable with being in there. But they're great for this. We can also lift them out and take them if we were going to go into a cafe and we had space to be able to pop the crate. Again, we could use that as being a nice little secure space for our dog so that they could go in there and while we're having our tea and cake, they could be settled in there.
Very handy.
Absolutely.
I have done that with Bailey one time. And also things like train travel, for example, then it's handy for times like that when you want to kind of keep them in that space and you know that they're on their own bed, they're likely to have a sleep. It all makes it a lot easier.
Definitely.
Doesn't it?
Definitely.
One like that is really good as well for when you first get a dog.
Yeah.
And then they know that that's the place that they can go to, isn't it? To make them feel more secure.
Yes. And the great thing about these crates is there's 3 sides that are actually open as well. So what we can do, and then we've also got a top, which is brilliant for throwing treats into there to encourage them in. But what we could do is we could decide that we're actually going to have a couple of the sides open. So even if they come in that way, they can exit out the other way. We all talk about the fact that dogs like to be places that sort of represent a den, but dens never have shut doors. So they should always have that ability to be able to come in and come out if they want to. Some dogs, Tink has always been really comfortable and really enjoyed being in a crate. My old Jack Russell hated being anywhere that was confined.
Yeah.
So if we have got a dog that is really uncomfortable in there and we've done all the good stuff, leaving the crate, all the sides open, putting a few treats in there, giving them space to want to go in there.
So that's the way to encourage them, by just making it a positive experience. You don't want them to feel like it's a punishment or you're zipping them up in there or anything.
So it's always got to be their choice to come in and move out again. But usually once they're really happy and comfortable in a crate, is quite quick. We quite easily zip it up, and especially if we needed them to be somewhere where they were secure. But that we just need to build up to that and make sure that they are dogs that are going to be comfortable in a crate.
And actually, we found getting it in and out of the car. If you have an older dog that you're worried it's going to leap out and hurt itself because it's so excited to be there, you can lift that out and then kind of carefully get them out. Bit of weightlifting, but depending on the size of your dog.
Definitely. But they make all different shapes of these size crate. So I've got one that actually fits Maggie in the back of my car. So it's a really big crate. But again, getting in and out is incredibly easy because it's plastic and it's got a fabric exterior, whereas a metal crate, it's quite difficult to be able to manoeuvre them in and out of cars.
Great. Brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Kris. Summarise for us then, if your dog is scared of going in the car, what are your top tips to help someone?
So firstly, regardless if this is a sudden onset or not, I would just check with the vet to make sure there's no physical reason why he or she is reluctant to go into the crate. So that's into the car, sorry, that's number one. Then just decide whether the dog's always been a little bit hesitant about going into the car. So this has been a behaviour that's sort of built up over time. Try and understand whether it is travel sickness, whether the dog loves being in the car but just doesn't like getting into the car. If that's the case, they've been vet checked. We could teach them to go up ramps, up steps to get into the car. Whether it's actually closing the boot on the car that causes them to become worried or a little bit frustrated, and then just working through that. So slowly introducing them to the boot closing and having a few treats as we do. If they don't want to be kept away from their owner when they're driving, maybe consider them having them on the back seat, but making sure that they're harnessed and restrained at all times. And if you feel that a crate would be something that would be suitable for you and your dog, again, assuming that the dog is quite happy going in there, then you could also use that as an alternative on the back seat or in the boot.
And practice that at home, can't you? Kris, thank you so much. Great advice. And look, Tink beautifully now demonstrating how cosy and snug a dog is, enjoying cuddling up in the crate there. Well done. Good job, Tink. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Leaps and Hounds. We'll be back again next week with another episode answering all the questions that you've been getting in touch with. Thank you so much for the dog behaviour problems that you've been sending in, and we will see you next week. Bye for now.